So our environment comprises of biotic, that means living organisms like microbe, plants and animals, and our environment also include non-living components or abiotic components like air, water, sunlight, etc. So together biotic as well as abiotic components comprises of our valuable environment. According to our Environmental Protection Act of 1986, environment can also be defined as that environment include water, air and land. Along with that, interrelationships between water, air and land. Apart from this, we also consider human beings and other living creatures like plants, microbes, property, etc. So together, everything water, air, land, humans, other species and their interaction comprises of our environment. Our environment include many components. So 4 components are the main components of our environment: lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere and biosphere. So lithosphere is the outer crust of our earth. So our earth can be subdivided into various sections like crust, mantle, core. So the outermost surface of our earth is known as lithosphere. So lithosphere is derived from the term lithos, which means rock. So our earth structure can be stratified into outer crust, this part is the outer crust, mantle and core. So lithosphere is the outermost layer or surface of earth, and on this surface we find rock, soil, sediments and mineral. The next component of our environment is hydrosphere. Hydrosphere represent water mass which is present on our planet. So this water mass can be present in the form of solid like ice cover, glaciers, etc., or liquid like water bodies, and even in gaseous state, for example water vapor. So water in any form is considered as hydrosphere. It may be solid form, liquid form or gaseous form. And in fact, hydrosphere cover almost 3/4 of our total surface of earth. Now the water which is present on our earth is subdivided into 2 types: saline water, which has very high amount of salt content, and fresh water, which has minimum amount of salt content. So saline water contributes to 97% of total water present on our planet, and 3% of total water present on our planet is fresh water. So freshwater resource which is used by us for drinking, irrigation and for various other purpose is so less, just 3%. And even within this 3%, 2% of water is totally inaccessible because it is present in the form of ice caps or glaciers. So we are dependent on 1% of water which is available to us in the form of surface water and groundwater. For example, river, lake, pond and aquifer. So together, water mass in solid, liquid and gaseous form forms our second component, that is hydrosphere. Third component of environment is atmosphere. Atmosphere is the outer blanket of gas which surround our planet Earth. So this atmosphere can be subdivided into different layers. For example, troposphere, hydrosphere, stratosphere, mesosphere and thermosphere. So the troposphere is the layer which is present just adjacent to Earth. So this exists, that means troposphere exists till an altitude of approximately 10 to 16 kilometers. So it is 16 kilometers at equator and 8 kilometers at pole. So this layer, that is troposphere, is very important for our survival because number of important gases like carbon dioxide, methane and many other gases are present within this layer. So all these gases like CO2, methane, they keep our planet warm and therefore life is existing on this planet. Just above troposphere is the next layer which is known as stratosphere. So stratosphere is the layer which is very important because it possesses ozone in it. So ozone of this layer prevent penetration of ultraviolet radiation on our earth, and thereby we are prevented from any kind of skin cancer and allergies, etc. The next layer is mesosphere. Mesosphere is the layer in which there is steep decline in temperature. So this red line indicates decline in temperature. Mesosphere is also important because this is the layer where meteoroids are totally avoided to enter our earth. Just above mesosphere is the next layer, thermosphere, where temperature increases very rapidly. So there are number of ionization reactions that take place within thermosphere, and that makes the temperature of this layer quite warm. So there is ionic oxygen atom and other ions in this layer which absorb short wave solar radiation and increases the temperature in this layer rapidly from -90 to 1200 degrees Celsius. The next layer or the next component of environment is biosphere. So biosphere is basically a self-regulating overlapping region. So a region where atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere exist, along with that life forms also sustainably exist, is known as biosphere. So it is self-regulating overlapping region of atmosphere, lithosphere and hydrosphere in the environment where life sustainably exists, nourished, flourished by healthy interactions between biotic and abiotic components of nature. Environmental studies is considered as a multidisciplinary subject because environmental problems are so complex that they can never be solved by just one discipline. So to solve environment problem and to bring out solutions to the environmental crisis that exists today, we need to apply multidisciplinary approach. Therefore, in environmental studies, we include physical science like physics, chemistry, earth science, atmospheric science. Environmental science is also interdisciplinary and include the knowledge of technology like civil, chemical, hydraulic, nano. It is the subject where management knowledge is also applicable, for example, economics, sociology, law, education, management, mass communication. Environmental studies is also a subject where we have to apply the knowledge of mathematics, statistics, computer science, and further, even life science is a subject which is very much applicable to solve environmental issues. So life science include biology, biochemistry, microbiology, etc. So environmental studies is a multidisciplinary subject. Now let us try to prove this with one case study. This case study is related to one of the worst industrial disaster which has ever happened in our country, Bhopal gas tragedy. Yes, December 2nd to 3rd, 1984. Who can forget this date when huge amount of toxic gas enveloped the city of Bhopal and killed number of people. So this incident happened in the state of Madhya Pradesh, and within Madhya Pradesh, right in the center, Bhopal city. So on 2nd to 3rd December 1984, huge amount of toxic gas, methyl isocyanate, reacted with water and created so much toxic compound that they all enveloped Bhopal city. In this incident, approximately 5 lakh people were found to be paralyzed or affected in some form like cancer or other diseases. Now, the history of this Bhopal gas tragedy can be correlated with several initiatives taken by government after independence. So after independence, the priority of India was to develop, and development was possible if our country's citizens were getting enough food. So to boost agricultural output, we have started Green Revolution in our country. Now this Green Revolution was based on usage of fertilizer, pesticide and HYV seed, that means high yielding variety seeds. Now out of these three, we were importing pesticide for a long period of time from other countries. Now To make India self-sufficient in pesticide, government had established one of the plant pesticide production unit in the Bhopal city. So in Bhopal city, that means in Madhya Pradesh, Union Carbide Corporation, which was an international company responsible for manufacturing pesticide in many parts of the world, opened its subsidiary branch with the name UCIL. That means Union Carbide India Limited. So this was the company Union Carbide India Limited, which was established right in the center of Bhopal city. And this company was involved in synthesis of pesticides like LD Carb, Sevin, etc. Now the location of this plant was not correct because right in the center of Bhopal city, the city had number of human settlement. Anyways, so this Bhopal plant or UCIL was manufacturing its pesticide like LD Carb and Sevin with the help of a raw material, and the raw material was methyl isocyanate. Now this gas methyl isocyanate has a property that it becomes reactive when it comes in contact with water, and within few minutes this gas generates more than 300 toxic compound if it reacts with water. So the ideal situation to avoid this kind of reaction is to keep it in a form of cooled chamber or container which is totally sealed. But on 2nd December 1984, unfortunately, methyl isocyanate in one of the cylinders in Bhopal gas plant reacted with water and generated toxic fumes. Now these toxic fumes enveloped entire city, and just outside Union Carbide plant there was railway station, bus station, hospital. They were heavily residential area which was heavily affected. So Bhopal plant and the tragedy in Bhopal plant affected number of people. So gas leak at Bhopal during the midnight of December 2nd to 3rd, 1984 affected large number of people. The effects were quite visible immediately after the incident. Many kids, they were paralyzed. Many people lost their eyes, and there was a number of people who were affected with cancer. In fact, according to 1984 survey, 3,000 people lost their lives and 30,000 people were physically injured. Now immediately after Bhopal gas tragedy, the main problem was where to file the case. This was an incident where number of people were affected, but immediately after the incident there were two kind of view. People were confused who is responsible for this incident, and secondly, where to file this case. So some people believed that UCC was responsible because Union Carbide Corporation was the main branch which was operating all across the world and opened its subsidiary branch in India. So if a case is filed, it should be filed against UCC, Union Carbide Corporation. But there were a number of people who were of the view that it is UCIL, that means the subsidiary branch of UCC, that is Union Carbide India Limited, is responsible in this case. There was also a lot of confusion regarding where to file the case. Some people believed that case should be filed in India. Because this incident took place in India, UCIL plant was right in the center of Bhopal city, and therefore case should be filed against UCIL in India. But others, there were many people who believed that case should be filed against UCC, that means Union Carbide Corporation. And since the company was operating from America, people believed that case should be filed in America. On another side, we can also say that people believed at that point of time Indian judiciary was totally weak. There were hardly any environmental law in Indian judiciary, and therefore people thought that it would be better to file case in America. So immediately after this incident, case was filed in America, but however, federal judges soon rejected the case. So federal judges of America emphasized that it wouldn't be feasible to bring all the victims every time to America for the case proceedings. Federal judges also emphasized that Indian judiciary should be made strong in terms of environmental laws. So ultimately, the case was rejected by American judges, and later on, Supreme Court delivered justice in this case. So the judgment which came out and the judgment was declared in 1989. According to this judgment, Union Carbide Corporation was asked to pay $470 million to compensate all the victims. Moreover, it was declared that UCC, that is Union Carbide Corporation, will be free from all the charges after it pay $470 million. But however, the reality was totally different. At that time when this judgment was out, that means in 1989, many people complained that they were also affected from the incident, but they had developed disease little later. So Supreme Court conducted and ordered a fresh count to see how many people are actually affected. And you will be surprised to know that according to the survey of 1989, entire city, which comprises of 5,73,000 people, were affected in Bhopal. So if we go and distribute $470 million to 5,73,000 people, it will be very low amount per person. So after this judgment, no one really accepted this, and people are still waiting for justice to be delivered. This is one of the classic example of a case which happened in our own country. So after learning about Bhopal gas tragedy, we can say that it was very complex case, and to solve this, we had to apply multiple discipline. For example, in Bhopal gas tragedy, knowledge of life science was applicable because the victims or the diseases we were able to judge because of life science. We can also say physics, chemistry, earth science was very important to understand the location and the amount of gas which leaked out during the gas leak. Technology was also important, especially when Bhopal plant was constructed. It was developed only through the understanding of technology. Economics was important in order to calculate the compensation. Law field is also important because Bhopal case was a long legal battle. Same way, mathematics was very important in calculating the actual count of people who were affected in this case. Statistics and computer science, they are also important in entry of the data related to Bhopal gas case. So in a way, we can say that every environmental case is very complex and cannot be solved just by one discipline. And therefore, environmental studies is considered as a multidisciplinary subject. Let us now discuss history of environmentalism. So our Indian history can be categorized into following time period: ancient, medieval, British and modern. In ancient time period, we have noticed a very important movement, a very important civilization which is known as Indus Valley Civilization. And if we go by the evidence of Indus Valley Civilization, we can easily make out that people during that time were in close association with nature. So Harappan seals are easily available to us, and all these seals really depict various animals and trees. So human during ancient India and especially during Harappan civilization were very well associated with environment. Even during Vedic age, when Aryans entered from neighboring country into our country and settled all across Ganga river, at that time number of literature and ancient texts indicate that there was rich forested area, there were bird, clean water, and therefore our surrounding was very clean. During medieval India, that means the time period when number of Mughal rulers like Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb ruled our country, at that point of time we have pictorial depiction that hunting was a very popular sports game. So even the records of Akbarnama, Jahangir has also written the book. So they used to maintain their daily record, and in those daily record it was clear that the king of those time, that means medieval time period, they were hunting all these forested animals. In British India, we know that this was a time period when industrial revolution was going on. So the mode of development during British India was solely based on economic growth. So people of that time were focused only on economic growth, and to do this they have cleared large area of forest. They have hunted down large number of species, and we can definitely say that industrial revolution was the time period when huge damage to our valuable forest and natural resources happened. India became independent later on from British rule, but environmental challenges still existed. So even today we find there are a number of issues. We have huge human population, and to meet the demand of human population, our forests are rapidly shrinking. So we are left with very less area of forest all across the country. Brief history of environmentalism. So from 1960s onward, there has been rapid increase in environmental awareness, and we have noticed number of treaties, international agreements which have been started from 1960s onward. So in 1960, a very popular book with the name Silent Spring was written by Rachel Carson. In this book, Rachel Carson had highlighted the impact of pesticide on wildlife. In fact, she has mentioned how these toxic chemicals like pesticide affect the developmental process of birds. Later in 1971, Ramsar Convention, which is one of the most popular convention to protect wetland, was signed. In 1972, at the world level, United Nations Conference on Human Environment was held. This conference is also considered as the most important conference, or you can say that first environmental conference. This conference was held at Stockholm, Sweden from 5th June to 16th June. And since then we have been celebrating 5th June as World Environment Day. So this was the first time when people and all the world leaders, they came up and discussed about environmental issues. Later, immediately after 1 year of Stockholm conference, Indira Gandhi had implemented Project Tiger scheme in our country to save tiger, which is also the national animal of our country. In 1979, sadly, 3 Mile Island nuclear disaster took place in America. There were many other incidents of industrial disaster, and one of it was in our own country. So in 1984, Bhopal gas tragedy happened from 2nd to 3rd December 1984. So it was clear that the model of development that we were following, which was based solely on economic growth, was not correct. In 1985, Vienna Convention on Ozone Depletion was signed. So problems like ozone depletions were quite evident by 1985. In 1986, again one of the industrial disaster happened, and this time it was Russia. So Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened on 1986. Later, since people have realized that the mode of development solely based on economic growth is not correct, therefore in 1987, Brundtland Commission came up with its report Our Common Future. And also this is the same year when Montreal Protocol was signed to control ozone depletion. In 1989, all across the world, International Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was signed. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is the main body which decide and figure out what kind of problem is associated with climate change, what is the cause of climate change, and how society or environment will be affected because of climate change. In 1992, Earth Summit was held. This Earth Summit was held 20 years later after Stockholm Conference. So this was the time period in 1992 when people met at Earth Summit and they formulated the guideline of sustainable development. The concept of sustainable development was given in Brundtland Commission report, Our Common Future. So by 1987, it was clear that all the countries should follow a pattern of development which is based on sustainable concept. That means we need to preserve resources and we have to use those resources wisely so that they are available for the next generation too. But it was Earth Summit in which formally the guideline of sustainable development was laid down. In 1992, that means same year when Earth Summit was signed, same year 3 bodies were formed. UNFCCC, that means United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, United Nations Convention on Biodiversity, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. So all these 3 bodies were signed. UNFCCC, that means United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, was focused and it is still working continuously to combat climate change. And this is the body which has later on developed Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement to control climate change. United Nations Convention on Biodiversity is the body which deals with conservation of plants and animals and also related to sustainable use of bioresource. UNCCD, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, lay down programs by which barren area or desertification of area could be avoided. So later on in 1997, 5 years later, UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, came up with Kyoto Protocol. So Kyoto Protocol is the first treaty ever signed to control climate change. Further, in 2002, Earth Summit, which is also known as Rio Plus 10, was held at Johannesburg. So this time, in this model of sustainable development, we have also included upliftment of society. So earlier in Rio conference, sustainable development term was based on economic growth and environmental protection. And here at Johannesburg, 3 pillars were added to the concept of sustainable development. First, economic growth. Second, environmental protection. And third, upliftment of society. 2011 till 2020, it was celebrated as UN Decade of Biodiversity. In 2015, Paris Agreement was held, which is an agreement to control climate change. In the same year, when Paris Agreement was going on, India came up with a very bright idea. That means International Solar Alliance. In this alliance, it was decided that all the countries which are on tropical region will collaborate with each other and they will harness solar energy to the maximum possible extent. So if we continue with solar energy, then we will be able to control climate change to a greater extent. So you can see from 1960s onward, there was increase in the awareness of environment, and continuously we are having number of treaties and discussion on environmental issues. Concept of sustainable development. So this concept of sustainable development was formulated in Brundtland Commission, which was formed in 1983. The name of Brundtland Commission was on the basis of Norwegian Prime Minister Brundtland. So this commission came up with its report in 1987 and the name of the report is Our Common Future. In this report, sustainable development concept was laid for the first time. So, sustainable development is the development which meets the demand of present generation without compromising with the ability of future generation to meet its own need. To follow this model of sustainable development, at present we have 17 goals like no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduced inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice and a strong institution, partnership for the goals. So 17 goals are set as 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It was adopted by United Nations state members in 2015 as a blueprint for peace, prosperity of people as well as for planet. So if you notice, sustainable development is based on 3 pillars: society, social equity. So these sustainable development concepts are based on the facts that we need to improve living condition, we need to provide equal opportunity, social cohesion, international solidarity, maintenance of human capital. Apart from this, there are many goals which are related to economics. That means we need to increase economic growth. We need to increase efficiency and competitiveness of people. There should be more flexibility and stability, more production and consumption, more better employment, and more international trade. Apart from these 2 pillars, there is additional pillar, environmental responsibility. So no doubt we will follow economic growth, we will also think in terms of upliftment of people, but at the same time, we also have to think about environmental responsibility. So the consumption of resources should be such that no resource is wasted. We need to make available these resources for our next generation as well. We need to minimize waste. We need to minimize risk. Also, we need to think about how our natural and cultural landscape could be maintained. So sustainable development could be attained only when there is an overlap between social, economic, and environment dimensions. So society, environment and economy collectively considered as 3 pillars of sustainable development. When these 3 pillars harmonically interact with each other, sustainability and sustainable development is considered to be achieved. Environmental education. So from 1960s, as we have seen, environment became one of the most important topic. So it was really needed that all the people should be made aware about environment. So environmental education was implemented in second half of 20th century, and the main objective of this kind of education is to create awareness about environmental problems among masses, to impart basic knowledge about environment, to develop an attitude of concern among people, to motivate them for environment conservation, and to let people acquire skills so that they provide us with some solution towards environmental problem. So UNESCO and UNEP. UNEP is United Nations Environment Programme. They have jointly organized their first intergovernmental conference on environment education in Georgia in the year 1977. And since then, environment education is imparted all across the world. In India, Supreme Court came up with very important decision in 1991, and the decision was to implement environmental studies as a compulsory paper for all students at undergraduate level in Indian university. And since then, EVS is one of the compulsory paper. Environmental studies has a huge scope. So a person who has good knowledge about environment can opt for teaching and can be academician. We also need research and development to find solution for environmental problem. There is also scope in industries because industries require trained people who can give them advice on environmental issues. Ministry of Environment and Forest and various other agencies all across our country are working towards environment. There is huge opportunity to work with non-government organization directly dealing with environmental problems. So there are non-government organizations like WWF, Worldwide Fund for Nature, or Bombay Natural History Society. So there are a number of organizations which are working to control environmental problems. A person who has sound knowledge of environment and the one who has good communication skill can also become green journalist. And also, person who also have environmental law degree can become advocate or judge. There are a number of environmentalists who are very popular. MC Mehta is one of them. MC Mehta is one of the most famous environmental lawyer of the country, and he had introduced environmental subject in schools and colleges. In fact, MC Mehta had also filed case against the industry who were releasing lot of toxic pollutant in Kanpur, and they were really discharging their toxic pollutant directly in Ganga river. MC Mehta had also filed case against Mathura Petroleum Refinery, which was responsible for acid rain that was corroding Taj Mahal marble. There are a number of environmentalists associated with Chipko movement. For example, Sundarlal Bahuguna, Chanti Prasad Bhatt and Gaura Devi. All of them have started a popular movement in the state of Uttarakhand, and the movement was to hug the trees and protect them. And based on this movement, the sports good company which was permitted by government to cut the trees had to go away. So Chipko movement is considered to be the most successful movement in the field of environment. Indira Gandhi is another environmentalist. No doubt, Indira Gandhi is a famous politician, but she also had lot of inclination towards environment. In fact, she attended many international conferences like Stockholm Conference in 1972. Indira Gandhi had also initiated Wildlife Protection Act in 1972. She had introduced Project Tiger scheme in 1973, and Chipko movement was also going on during her tenureship, and therefore she imposed ban on deforestation for 15 years in the state of Uttarakhand. R.K. Pachauri is another famous environmentalist. He was the head of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and therefore he brought deep understanding of climate change. IPCC is actually the scientific body which analyzes cause and effects of climate change. Based on his noble work, he also received Nobel Prize in the year 2007. Wangari Maathai is a well-known Kenyan social, environmental and political activist, and she is the first African woman to win the Nobel Prize. Wangari Maathai had founded Green Belt movement. In this movement, all the local ladies had planted billions of saplings, and by this way they were able to reforest the area. Anil Agarwal and Sunita Narayan are associated with Center for Science and Environment. So this organization is responsible for various findings. For example, this organization brought into notice that the soft drinks that we consume, they are full of pesticides. This organization also released its report which said and which highlighted that 84% of bread sample had high amount of potassium bromate. So this institute is working towards environmental research. Maneka Gandhi is another popular environmentalist. She is an Indian politician, animal rights activist and environmentalist. Maneka Gandhi had started People for Animal, which is the largest organization for animal welfare and rights. She had also anchored weekly television program Head and Tail, in which she had highlighted the suffering which are meted out to animals due to their commercial exploitation. She had also filed PIL in order to replace municipal killing of harmless dogs with a sterilization program. Greta Thunberg is an environmental activist of contemporary time period. She is a Swedish environmentalist, and she is also known internationally for challenging world leaders to take immediate action against climate change. There are a number of environment institutes in our country. For example, CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board in Delhi, which is responsible for measuring the amount of pollutants and also advise central government to control environment pollution. Every state in our country has one State Pollution Control Board which check the pollution load in their own state territory. This board, that means the State Pollution Control Board, also advises state government on ways by which pollution can be controlled. Ministry of Environment and Forest is located in Delhi. It is the nodal agency which highlights and formulate guidelines on various environmental issues. They also conduct different types of environment awareness programs all across the nation. MOEF also compile environmental parameter data of entire country. Center for Science and Environment is the organization in Delhi which is responsible for doing commendable research work, and this is the organization which highlighted that soft drinks contain high amount of pesticides, same way bread contain high amount of potassium bromate. NGT, National Green Tribunal, is the environment court of our country which deliver fast judgment within the time span of 6 months, and this Green Tribunal has 5 branches. These 5 branches are located in Bhopal, Pune, Kolkata, Delhi, Chennai. IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. This organization is located in Switzerland, and this is very important organization which is doing lot of work to classify and count the population of a species, and then they classify these organisms into different categories like extinct, endangered, critically endangered. So those species which are on the verge of extinction are considered under critically endangered, and those which are no more existing on our planet, they are considered as extinct. So these classification is done based on population count by IUCN, and this record of species number is written in IUCN Red Data List. Botanical Survey of India is located in Kolkata, and this institute is involved in identification of new plants and also evaluation of their economic property. ZSI is Zoological Survey of India. This institute is also located in Kolkata, and this institute is responsible for identification of new animals, along with that how valuable economically these animals are for us. CEE, Center for Environment Education, is an institute located in Ahmedabad, and this institute is responsible for providing environment education. So they develop various reading material, they organize campaigns, lectures to make people aware about environmental issues. WII is Wildlife Institute of India, located in Dehradun, and this institute is working in the field of wildlife research. Bombay Natural History Society is an institute founded by Salim Ali, and this institute is in Mumbai. So this organization is working towards research on wild species like bird, reptile, mammals, etc. So there are a number of environmental institutes all across our country. There are few environmental dates which are very important. 5th June is celebrated as World Environment Day. 2nd Feb is celebrated as World Wetland Day. Wetlands are the places like lake, marsh, coastal area, pond. So any place which has a water body is considered to be very important, because that is the area where number of species get habitat, and to conserve these wetlands we celebrate 2nd February as World Wetland Day. 22 March is celebrated as World Water Day. 22 April is celebrated as Earth Day. 22 May is celebrated as International Biodiversity Day. 6th September is the World Ozone Day. First week of October is celebrated as World Wildlife Week. So with this, we have completed all topics of this chapter 1. Let us make our planet green, and let us keep learning about environment.